Most politicians who leave their political party do so because they were pushed out. Kevin Kiley left by choice. He spent years watching Congress reward gridlock and punish independents. When Proposition 50 passed in California, resulting in the redistricting of his district into 6 different pieces, he could have taken the safe path. He could have run for re-election in the reddest of them. Instead, he chose a bluer district and ran as an independent against the whole weight of a system designed to make that impossible. When Kevin left the Republican Party, he lost all of his committee assignments in Congress. But earlier this summer, he won his primary. He's returning to Congress and running as an incumbent independent. What does it look like when you govern when neither party owes you anything and you don't owe them anything either? We're about to find out. Welcome, Congressman Kevin Kiley.
Thanks for having me.
Great to see you, Congressman. Thanks so much for being here today. We are all very excited to hear about your recent journey as an independent. You were a Republican for your entire political career. So walk us through the moment you decided to change that. What was it that finally moved you?
Sort of the final thing that really made me make this move was the gerrymandering war that had broken out across the country, which I thought represented just partisanship run amok, taken to a whole new level, becoming even more deeply embedded to the very structure of politics in our country in a way that was sure to lead to even further polarization and gridlock. So I was very much against this everywhere that it occurred, whether Texas, whether California, whether any of the subsequent states that have done it. And then, of course, it resulted in my own district being severed into 6 different pieces. So in the wake of that, and seeing this just utter failure of partisanship and the inability of the two sides to come together for a rational solution, it epitomized sort of everything that I had experienced during my few years in the House, which is just that dysfunction in Washington is even worse than I think most people imagine. And much of it is rooted in the way things are done in a strictly partisan way here. After the gerrymandering occurred in California, I've continued to push for a ban on mid-decade redistricting nationwide and an end to gerrymandering. But in looking at what my options were, a lot of people, as you mentioned in your intro, said, well, yeah, you should just go and run in the safe Republican seat that was created through this gerrymander, because that's how gerrymandering works, is they have like these evoked sync districts that become, it becomes safe, and then all the others are meant to go the other way. I did feel like I had an obligation to look at each of the 6 options I had, because my district was cut in 6 different pieces. And I think most people expected I would just do that. That's what people typically do in these situations. But I decided to take a different route, and decided that if I were to do that, I'd be contributing to the problem. I'd be taking advantage of the gerrymander. I'd be making things worse, and I wanted to try to find a way to make them better.
Well, and look at what happened with 2 of your colleagues. I was going to say 2 of your colleagues in Southern California with Young Kim. Now there's a top 2 runoff between 2 Republicans in that safe district that was redistricted.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So you did see that's the path that they chose. That's the new safe district that was created kind of by merging 2 district, which is where I live, which is where a good chunk of my current district is, and decided that the best way to try to overcome this hyper-partisanship, as epitomized by gerrymandering, where partisanship is elevated above everything else in our politics, is to take partisanship out of the equation and to chart a different course and to try to show that there's a different way of operating in Washington. And so I filed to run in the new 6th district, changed my party registration to no party preference, and then officially changed my designation here in Washington to independent.
Well, I have to say that we genuinely appreciate your courage in doing that. All 3 of us here today have made that choice, and it's not an easy one. And each person has their own reason, their moment when they decided that their dedication to their party was not higher than some other value that they have. For me, it was after January 6th when I saw that my then party did not stand up and call January 6th what it was, and genuinely say that they were going to reject this notion of the election having been stolen. That was the breaking point for me. And I know that Governor Whitman had struggled with the party affiliation for many years, trying to bring it to a more sensible and moderate place, and eventually couldn't get there.
No, you can't do it within the system. They clearly have it set up just exactly the way they want it, which is what happened in California, where you can see with those districts. And, that brings us to, you chose a Democratic district, and you're running in a state where it has the top two get through. So you have, as some districts, you have two Republicans running against each other. What was it like for you running as an independent in a district when you haven't, it's not your district, it's a Democratic district, you're running as an independent, and the top two are the ones that get through? What was that like?
The reaction has really been great. And I ended up finishing in first in the primary that just happened. There were 5 Democrats on the ballot and 1 Republican. So we finished ahead of Democrat and Republican candidates. And I think the California top 2 system does perhaps make that path a little more viable in some cases, although even in California, it hasn't exactly been common. In fact, this was the first time ever since the top 2 primary began in 2012, with thousands of people having run for Congress, that an independent finished in the top 2. But I think that the reaction has actually been great, with a lot of people who say, yeah, we're just tired of of how partisan politics have become. We want someone who represents us, who represents our district, who answers to their constituents, as opposed to answering to party leaders.
I think that's the essence of the independents, and that's the essence of Forward. And what we're doing is hoping to give you the backing that you need to be able to do that, and then carry it out when you get your seat in the House.
Yeah. I know that when we talk to potential candidates about running as an independent or running as a member of the Forward Party, one of the, especially for Congress, their main concern is, well, I can't do that because I won't have any committee assignments. I won't, I'll have to choose someone to caucus with. What will I do? And yet, and you yourself you're experiencing this right now. You were stripped of your party assignments. How do you imagine that this could work in the future? If there are more Kevin Kileys out there, if more people come and join you, is it always going to be the case that you won't have committee assignments, or how could this work differently?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the case. All we have to do is change the rules of the House. And I think it's kind of crazy the way the rules are written right now.
And that, I think for our listeners, Congressman, that sounds like this huge thing, right? We have to change the rules of the House. You guys do it at the start of every single Congress. It's not a huge issue. This is something you guys do every single, at the start of every Congress, every 2 years. It's a simple majority vote. So for listeners out there to hear a member of Congress say, well, we have to change the rules, it's actually really easy. Right?
That's a great point. Yeah, this is not like something that's set in stone.
Yeah.
Like it's not something like the Constitution that is this, enduring, foundation for how the House operates. You're right. Every session, at the beginning of session, we vote on the rules for that session. So whatever came before, yes, it's a template for what you vote on, but the rules do in fact change. You had a change in the rules just this last term to raise the threshold for vacating the speaker, for example. So
walk us through that.
To negotiation.
Give our viewers a little better understanding of how that happens.
So let's say you are now you're going into the next session of Congress. You've been reelected. You have some fellow travelers around you who you've gathered who are also perhaps independents. How do you begin that discussion to renegotiate the rules?
Well, you have to show you have leverage, and I guess you could take one example, which might not be the model exactly you'd want to follow, but illustrates the principle, which is that when Kevin McCarthy was trying to wrangle the votes to become Speaker, there were a group of holdouts, and one of their demands was to actually lower the threshold for a motion to vacate the Speaker, and they got that changed in the rules as sort of a condition of their vote, which of course was then actually exploited later that year. But it goes to show you that when you have a critical mass that has the power to sway who the Speaker is, who the majority is, and so forth, then there is tremendous leverage to try to make changes in the rules in a way that, in our case, would help the House to operate better.
Yeah. And at this moment in time, I know it's going to change after November, but at this moment in time, how many votes would you need? How many independents would we need in the House to be able to have that kind of sway and demand a change in the rules?
Really just a few. I mean, it kind of, depending on attendance in the House these days, we're talking about a margin between the parties of just a handful of seats. Like, for example, the reconciliation vote that happened a couple weeks ago. All the Republicans voted yes. All the Democrats voted no. I voted no. And it passed by a 2-vote margin. So that gives you a sense of where things are at.
Well, and you should know that we have several candidates that are running for the House that are already from different states that are already talking to each other about what kind of reforms they want to see and how they'll go in together with ideas. So once we're through the election system, you've got to be in touch with them as well, because they're going to be newbies, but they already are going to have ideas of what they want to accomplish.
And one of the most important things is that you've shown them that it's possible.
Right.
I think it's very hard for people to do things that they haven't seen happen. And you mentioned that no other independent had ever risen to the top of the primary ballot outcomes in California before. But now that you've done this, people are going to be saying, oh, well, maybe an independent can actually serve in Congress. Maybe they can be effective. And so that's why we're trying to have this conversation so people can imagine it. And so when they see an independent on the ballot, they realize, oh, we could send that person to go serve with Kevin Kiley and amplify his message.
Well, and the fact that you won, I think, speaks to the hunger people have for independence, for candidates who will really represent them. So it's all a good sign. This is the moment.
It is, absolutely. Congressman, if you don't mind, I think sharing with our viewers and listeners something a little bit more personal that you've shared with us, and that is the surprising nature of the kind of nasty partisanship that you've experienced in Washington. And, we've had conversations with some of your fellow colleagues where they've talked about the psychological toll of the real nastiness in Washington and how it actually took you by surprise, even as someone who was a veteran of Sacramento and a former elected official, a statewide elected official in California. What does that mean for you day to day, for our members of Congress who are going to serve the American people? Because most of these folks are there for the right reason. They wanted to serve. But what does it mean when you show up with this kind of psychological torment of partisanship? And how does the system reward that loyalty?
Yeah, great question. I mean, what I guess was surprising to me is just how much everything defaults to sort of, partisanship or this kind of team sport, one side against the other here in DC. So as you mentioned, like I was in the state legislature in California for 6 years, hardly your sort of platonic ideal of how a legislative body should function. But even in comparison to that, the nature of the separation here, you caucus with your party. The aisle is a literal thing where everyone sits on one side versus the other on the House floor. Same for committees. You have one side here, one side there. Pretty much everything is done along the party lines in terms of how the House operates, of course, committee seats and who's chair and everything like that, and the staffs and everything. And so to sort of try to work in a bipartisan way requires an active choice to kind of, defy that norm or to at least, row against the current. And then on the political side as well, everything is structured in such a way that your reelection and everything connected with it, especially if you're in a targeted seat, is heavily reliant on the party's funding and infrastructure. But then even if you're not in a targeted seat, if you're in a safe seat, then your concern is always about getting a primary or something like that. And so all of the incentives, whether it's institutional, whether it's on the political side, kind of cut against having an independent-minded approach to things.
Well, it's interesting when you talk about the political infrastructure. That's what we talk about a lot at Ford, about why are we building this as a political party. People say, well, Americans are overwhelmingly disappointed and upset with political parties. Why would you build a new one? And we say because those are the functions by which we support our candidates across the country. So without the infrastructure, without the fundraising and technology and voter rolls and campaign talent. Folks like Kevin can't be supported outside the two-party system to act and behave independently.
Yeah. I always talk about it as a platform, that that the Forward Party is building the platform which will allow independent candidates to function just as if they, had the support that's available to the other two parties, or independent voters to actually have a choice. So, people often, I think of it as less of a party because we're not telling our candidates what they have to think or do. We're telling
Right.
them how they should act. We're telling them the principles they should uphold, which are fundamental American principles. But we're more of a platform to enable participation for independents and Forward Party members.
Well, that platform is being built from the ground up, and we always emphasize that, and we talk about that. And so, as we've been getting to know Congressman Kiley better, it's been really important that our leadership in California has a good relationship with him, and that they understand what kind of a leader Kevin is. What, Congressman, talk to us about kind of your experience spending time with our forward leadership in the state of California.
Yeah, I mean, what Forward is doing, I think, is really incredible and unique because there are so many people out there who believe that our system is broken and think that there should be some alternative to simply aligning with one party or the other. But it's not something that can simply be wished into existence. The problem here is very deeply rooted and structural and institutional. And what Forward is doing is actually sort of tackling those underlying issues in a way that is designed to make it more viable for some different path to open up in our politics, and doing so in a very targeted and realistic way, and in a way that I think has a very promising chance of being successful and changing the dynamic in Washington. And so I mentioned to you that when I decided to change my registration and become independent, it was something that I kind of talked about with my wife and a few people who were close to me. I was not really aware of this movement that Forward was leading, that was growing. And so to sort of discover that after I made this decision was really encouraging. And in the months since, having met a number of your leaders, your supporters, it's really an extraordinary community that I think is going to do some incredible things for our country.
Well, Congressman, now that you're out, now it's the campaign. It's not the primary anymore. You're heading toward the general election. What kind of reaction are you getting from the public when you're out there as to your race, as to the independents? Are you getting, and is it different from what you've seen before in your past election?
Yeah, I think that it's been overwhelmingly positive. There are some people on all sides who don't like it for one reason or another. But generally speaking, I think that even people who have been with one party or another all their life say, I think that the idea of being independent and saying, I am just going to answer to my constituents, that's something really appealing. Now, throughout my time in Congress, I've always had benefited from having a good crossover vote. I outperformed the presidential ticket by over 7 points in my last election, which was one of the best margins in the country. So I've always, approached both my work here and campaigns from the perspective of trying to build a coalition that transcends partisanship. And so in that sense, this is kind of just a natural evolution of that. But no, I've gotten a very good response to it, and I think that it's been more encouraging than I expected, actually.
Yeah. I mean, you've always been someone who was willing to cross party lines or go outside the party lines if you disagreed with something. I'm thinking of tariffs right now, or negotiating authority for trade. Are there things that you're looking forward to being, freer to talk about that you haven't been in the past?
Well, I'd say that for most of my time here, I've been relatively unconstrained in terms of trying to hold both sides accountable. But certainly I think it gives it an added, credibility when you're able to legislate and to engage in oversight and to simply voice an opinion on what's going on here. without the party label attached to you. People can kind of look at your actions and words with fresh eyes from a different perspective. And I think that is been very beneficial in trying to, in both the leverage I have here to get things done and trying to influence public debate.
Yeah. What have you been hearing from your constituents when you're out there and you're just saying, hey, I'm going to represent you. Tell me what matters to you and what do they want you to be doing in Washington?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what they want, is they want me to be representing them and representing our communities. And that message resonates. It doesn't matter, Democrat, Republican, or independents or Greens or what have you. For the voters that we've talked to and we've done some polling, the idea of having a representative who answers directly to them, who is looking out 100% for our communities and what's best for the country, and is not in any way tied to a party agenda, that actually resonates with people of all parties. So it's very interesting that even people who have their own partisan inclinations are pretty fed up with just the excess partisanship in this country.
And what would be the top 2 or 3 issues that you take on if you had other independents around you so you could get some things done?
Well, I guess I'd put them into 2 buckets. I mean, and they're interrelated. I mean, you have sort of just the substantive policy issues where I think if you had a coalition like this or a fulcrum, you could see some movement on, I'm thinking about an issue like the extension of the Affordable Care Act subsidies, which there was strong bipartisan support for doing a compromise bill, yet it never came together because the 2 parties didn't want it to happen. Right. A substantive issue like that, or a number of other measures.
It's like a 78% consensus issue amongst American voters.
Yeah, exactly. And I could go into detail if we had more time about how actually it was actions by leadership in both parties that essentially sabotaged the deal that the vast majority, I think, of the House would have supported. And so it's just a very clear example, like you said, something the vast majority of Americans support, even the vast majority of members support, but it didn't happen because the way things are set up structurally here and the political incentives in play. So, and then a number of other issues there along with cost of living, which is the central issue. And but then there's also, as we were referring to before, the sort of procedural or institutional reforms that we could make, both in terms of the way the House operates, things like, allowing independents who don't caucus with either party to have committee seats, maybe allowing, for discharge petitions to become a more powerful instrument for coalitions of members to come together.
Force those
without the
votes.
blessing of party leadership. Yeah. And then the broader electoral reforms, like, for example, the legislation I've introduced to do away with mid-decade gerrymandering and bring this redistricting war to an end.
How many closet independents do you think there are who, once they see that there's actually a legitimate group there to make things happen, will start to join, to do what they really wanted to do? They wanted to be good representatives.
Well, Brian Fitzpatrick went on the record and said he would be thrilled to be an independent if Pennsylvania had open primaries or a top 2 system like the one that Kevin's able to run in.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, Brian did say that. I think there's, at least a handful who would take the opportunity if it was perceived as viable for them in their political career. So, that's just people here. Like, you look at potential candidates, you look at the American public writ large, where something like half of Americans now don't identify with one party or the other. Right. I mean, that's a pretty shocking disconnect, right? When you have half the country, is independent, but then you have one, and until recently 0 members of the House who are. Yeah. So it's we need to do something to.
And we have this incredible slate of independents who are running for Congress right now. Veterans, mostly veterans, but also some firefighters, some teachers, farmers.
They're real people.
They represent America, and it's super exciting to see the people who've come forward who would be willing to serve. If you can be that exemplar, if you can show them the path, I think that we might be able to get some of those folks elected, and I think that America would be better off for it.
Well, it's funny how when you say to people, when I describe some of our candidates being farmers, being firefighters, they say, "Oh, real people. I really like that." It's not. Oh,
don't worry, Congressman. Lawyers are people too.
I'm a teacher, so that's person, right?
But
no
they can really
discrimination.
relate to them.
Recovering
It's
lawyer.
interesting.
Recovering lawyer. But you were a teacher. You're an educator, and that was it's been really important to you to be able to lead on the education committee. And so, talk to us about right now what it means for you as an independent. Are you affiliating right now with the Republican leadership? I know that's the way Bernie led when he was an independent. We are talking about rules changes that would allow you to really authentically serve as an independent and still receive committee assignments. But I know in conversations that we've had, it's really important to you in this Congress that you're still able to represent your constituents and do your job, so that your hands aren't tied behind your back. So, what does that look like every day?
Yeah, so that was the dilemma that we had to face initially, is that if you disaffiliate from a party, you, as a matter of, it's just automatic. You lose all of your committee seats, and it's hard to be a fully functioning member of the House. And as you mentioned, I was chair of the K-12 education subcommittee. That's the main reason I actually got involved in politics. When I first ran for the legislature, I'd been a high school teacher. I was part of Teach for America, and closing the achievement gap in our public education system continues to be the main thing I focus on from a policy perspective. And so the idea that I'm no longer going to be the chair of this subcommittee, where I think we've been doing great work, I'm going to no longer be on the committee itself. I'm going to no longer be on the transportation committee, where we've been able to deliver important road funding for my district, and we had the major highway bill coming up that we just voted to reauthorize, and not going to be on the judiciary committee, where I'm on several subcommittees there as well. That was sort of, a very high cost to bear. And I was, for this term, elected as a Republican. So the approach I chose to take was to say, all right, we'll continue to formally, caucus with the Republicans for the remainder of this term. But when I'm elected for a new term as an independent, I'm not going to pre-commit to anything. I'm going to do what's best for my constituents at the time. And ideally, we'll have changed the rules of the House by then, so you're not forced into this, this position where you have to choose one side or the other.
Yeah. And if you have the swing vote, your vote will be very important, and you'll have a lot of influence whether you're on those committees or not. So you will be the deciding vote on those matters. And I think that's a critical thing to remember, is that there will be a sudden attraction, toward becoming an independent and being a member of that Congress, because when people realize that you get to decide, then that's real power, and that's what Congress is about, unfortunately. But
yeah.
Can I ask you a question? And this is a little bit off script, but you served with Teach for America, and at the Forward Party, we are thinking about big ideas. We don't want to take kind of lowest common denominator, issues from the left and the right and smush them together. We really want, as a movement and as a political party, to be advancing ideas that meet the moment in our nation right now. And that means a changing job force. It means addressing AI. One of the things we've been having a lot of conversations about is national service.
Right.
Talk to us about your experience at Teach for America, and what do you think about the notion of a national service program?
I love it, and I've been a strong advocate. In fact, we're looking at doing some sort of hearing on ideas related to that national service, whether it's a requirement or an option, like a lot of other countries have. I think that it would be extraordinarily valuable if everyone had an experience like the Peace Corps or TFA or something like that, in kind of knitting together a common fabric of citizens, as we who then go out and enter the workforce and pursue their different careers. So I've been a big supporter of AmeriCorps. As a matter of fact, when their funding was threatened at the beginning of 2025, and in fact, it was impacting TFA because grants were being withheld and the stipends that their core members rely upon were in jeopardy, I came out and very forcefully opposed that and spoke on the floor of the House about it, and we got the funding restored. But I think it'd be a fantastic thing. I think it's a great issue for Forward to work on. I think it's something that the vast majority of Americans would support, is giving young people direct experience with service and meeting people from different walks of life and at a young age, and kind of trying to I think that might go further than perhaps anything else in trying to overcome some of the deep divisions that have now permeated the country.
Yeah, I mean, we talked today about the fact that we don't have any unifying experiences as a country. We don't listen to the same music. We don't listen to the same news channels. We go deep into our own silos and listen to the voices that agree with us. And doing something that serves your country for some period of time when you're young would be a unifying experience for everyone, and it would be an elevating one as well. And it's certainly a moment when we can imagine that that could be integrated into higher education as well, so that people who don't want to go on and go to a university could have the kind of training during that year that allows them to get a good paying job without that, and not taking on the debt. So I think this is a moment when this kind of idea could really get traction where it really hasn't been able to in the past. So I'm excited to hear your support for it, and thank you for doing it yourself.
Yeah, of course.
Well, Congressman, you've got to get back to work. You have votes. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your commitment to serving your constituents in an authentic way. And we will see you on the campaign trail.
Well, thanks very much. It's been wonderful getting to know you guys, and can't wait for what's to come. Thanks for everything you're doing.
Let us know what we can do for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks very much.
Kevin Kiley made a bet that voters would rather have someone who answers to them than someone who answers to a party. He won his primary. We'll see what November holds. But he has already shown is that the system has real cracks in it, and that a sitting member of Congress walking through those cracks can change what seems possible for everyone who comes after. Kevin, thank you again for joining us and for demonstrating that the path is harder than it should be, but still worth walking. Thank you again for being with us today.